Okay. I was a victim of rape, and I was raped at 13, became pregnant from the rape, and my social worker found out because in the 60s, we were very poor people, and so we was getting supplement food from the government, and we had a social worker, and the social worker found out that I was pregnant, so she had my grandmother to take me to the health department, and, they confirmed it. So anyway, I carried my son for 9 months. I don't even remember going in labor, and what happened was my sister told me that I was in labor because we didn't know anything about this stuff. So anyway, get to the hospital. They put me in a room. They put me to sleep, I guess. I don't remember anything about it. So when I woke up, I had my child, and I woke up with bandages on my stomach. But first, let me explain to you a little about eugenics in America. The eugenics in America, the eugenics movement here is about having healthy children. They believe in a pure race of people. They believe in blonde hair, blue eyes. And if you're not of that stock, then they feel like you are from a bad bloodline.
Like some Nazi
however, yeah, but hey, wait a minute though. It's not Nazi. It's America's shit because the Nazis
America.
got it from us.
The Nazis copied us, yes.
Yeah, they got it from us, and they were doing the Jewish people over there. But however, little to my knowing, I didn't even know that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist. And what happened was when they were bringing the immigrant people over here, they started sterilizing poor immigrants from like Russia, from Europe, from all over. However, you have these eugenicists, like I said, that believe that, if your parents are an alcoholic or if your parents have gone into prison or if you're of poverty, then, you're not of good stock. They base their belief on a fraud, what do you call it now? It was just a poor testing anyway, because sometimes what people don't realize is that if you are hungry, and if you're cold, people don't realize that has a lot to do with your mental capacities. And that's basically what was wrong with me. My mother was an alcoholic. My dad was shell-shocked. My grandmother was illiterate. So the social worker went in and asked my grandmother to sign an X. And my grandmother, not knowing what sterilization, tubercle ligation was, she signed that X because she was coerced into signing that. Because the social worker told her, if you don't sign this, we're going to stop your food supplements. Right. We're going to stop this. So, and my grandmother had a large family. It was like 15 of us living in, a 2-bedroom house.
So she
that
didn't,
right there
she didn't know what was going on, and these people were taking advantage of her
They took advantage of her.
Horrible.
Yeah, and here, so, it's like when I found out that this happened to me when I was 19, this happened to me when I was 14, when I found out what they had done to me, I was terrified. I mean, it was unbelievable, and someone had to explain it to me at 19 when I wanted to have a baby. The doctor told me that I had been butchered. Because when they went inside of me and did this to me, they so severely damaged my inside. My ovaries, my fallopian tubes, they clipped, tied, and burnt them, to make sure that I wouldn't have any children. And another thing is that they didn't only do it to me. Like you said earlier, they did it to millions of people. California is still doing this. They did it in North Carolina. North Carolina, there's 7,600 people, little boys and girls from 8, 9, 10 years old. And I asked them, what could we have done that would cause you to do this to us? And then, like they say, you're feeble-minded. That's the excuse they gave me. But as I said, I wasn't feeble-minded. I was just living in a poor environment.
Yeah, and this is now. See, people for years were talking about how China wouldn't let people reproduce, but in actuality, here in America, it's we probably gave China those ideas, like you're saying, what we did with the Nazis. So let's go back here. Okay, you go have the baby cesarean section. When they take your son out, they go inside and sterilize you without your knowing, without your knowledge, and then you find out
without
at the
my
age
consent.
of 19. When you found out what had happened to you, what was your immediate reaction? Did you go after them, or did you want to go after them legally?
I sure did. After all these years, I didn't know why I was hemorrhaging all the time. I didn't know why I was fainting. I could go anywhere, and I can just fall out in the street, and I had no idea what they had done, because you have to remember, I just turned 14, and my body wasn't even developed. They stopped me, my estrogen flow stopped, and like I said, like my body didn't really develop properly because of that. And what I did when I found out, my husband, he was like crazy. He hated me, and I had to deal with that. And when I found out that happened, I immediately went to the American Civil Liberties Union, and they did a little investigation and and they found out that the state of North Carolina had taken away my liberties to be a mother. They had taken that choice away from me, which they had no right to do that. And it took me longer than Roe v. Wade to fight this. I fought them for over 45 years. And finally,
45 years.
I
Wow.
did. I wouldn't let up. I would not let up. It took them 45 years and 3 governors, because when the American Civil Liberties took them to court, we had a jury, not of my peers. We had 11 people on the jury. All of them were like 50 and 60, probably 70 years old. And I'm a young woman, a young black woman, and it was only one black person on the jury. It took them less than 30 minutes to come back and say that they had not violated my rights. What are you talking about? So that was in 1982.
82.
Yeah, that was in 1982. And then in 2002, the editor of the Winston-Salem Journal and Representative Larry Wumble of North Carolina got in touch with me, because then they found out that they had did this to so many people there. 32 states within the United States was sterilizing their people. And the government today are saying that they only sterilize, 65,000 people within the whole United States. That's a lie.
Because that's a lie, yeah.
North Carolina did 7,600.
Yeah.
Virginia did 11,000. California, they did 20,000 back in the day, and they're still sterilizing their inmates, because when you are in California, you become a ward of the state. When you're in jail, and that's anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's anywhere.
It's crazy. It's crazy, not to cut you up. I want to go back a little ways too. I heard stories of slave owners, if they would have a slave who they deemed to be, like you said, feeble-minded, or if they deemed him to be deformed, they would literally put his penis in a device and crush it to where he couldn't reproduce. So
that's exactly what they were doing. They call that castration.
Too. Yeah,
that's castration.
So you're talking millions and millions of people probably over the course of time throughout this country's history of eugenics.
And that's why they hid it. And that's why I exposed it.
Yeah. And you know what? You're the one that really opened the doors on this horrible situation in our country. What happened after you exposed it? I know you said you fought it for 45 years, but when did you start winning? I know you started kicking their ass eventually.
Once I started going to North Carolina, I started going to, oh God, what was the name of the building? I started going to all their meetings, and I started standing up, and I started, asking them questions. I'm talking about the legislators. I appealed in front of 3 governors since 1982, and all of them agreed that they had violated my civil liberties, but they hadn't done anything. And I became even more persistent. And then, like in 2006, John Rayleigh of the Winston-Salem Journal wrote against their will, and then the whole world started coming out and asking questions, and we put North Carolina on the spot. And finally, a couple of years ago, they awarded the survivors of the Eugenics Board, $10 million. However, it was so many other people had been sterilized but was not part of the Eugenics Board. Only the people that got the money were the ones that the Eugenics had signed their names on to be sterilized. Back then, and even now, sometimes a lot of doctors do it without your knowledge. So, because I met so many people that had been sterilized, but it was by their doctor or someone else, or their social worker had them, but they were not part of the eugenics movement.
No paper trail on them, basically.
There was no paper trail. So they were not allowed to get any money, and that was very sad, because a lot, and this is and it's not only North Carolina did not leave a paper trail. There's other states that didn't leave a paper trail. Virginia is the only other state that is following North Carolina's footstep but they only giving their people $25,000 a piece, the survivors.